Hi everybody, I'm going to go over a few things for this week's assignments for week 5. I posted sort of a overview, as I always do, in the announcement and in the weekly folder. So I'm not going to read this to you, but I just want to go over a few of the parts of what you'll be doing this week. So last week, just as a reminder, you participated in the viewing of a couple of videos on rhetoric, how to write a rhetorical analysis, and just what rhetoric is. So I had posted a Writing Center's overview of the rhetorical analysis assignment, and then I had posted the Clemson University sort of general overview of what rhetoric is and the history of rhetoric. So hopefully by this point you've watched both. There was a quiz on the Clemson University rhetoric video, not just for liars anymore, I think is what the title was. And then you participated in the discussion board where I assigned 2 groups, 2 different readings, and then individually you were given either ethos, pathos, logos to review and to write about in the discussion board. So that was last week's lead-in to this week. So this week you're going to be actually writing a rhetorical analysis essay. And I wanted to go over some of the things, the expectations for that with you. And I think that for some of you, you may be a little bit put off because maybe you've never written an analysis paper or you've never dealt with rhetoric a lot. And rhetoric is an odd kind of thing if you've never dealt with it because it's kind of maybe a scary name or a scary concept. So hopefully if you're still sort of a little bit apprehensive with this type of assignment, I'll go over some of the key elements for it and sort of discuss those with you. So stick with me. Hopefully by the end of the video you'll have a better understanding of what I'm looking for with the rhetorical analysis and how to approach the assignment. We're going to look at 2 student samples, and I think it's really important to utilize those student samples because these are A papers, and these are papers where students have really done their best. Keep in mind when you look at a student sample that sometimes because it is a student, for that matter, any of us who write, you may find a mistake or two with writing. We always try to polish our writing as much as possible, but there's a chance that there's a mistake here or there. That still means that the student made an A, but maybe there were a few errors here or there. And that's part of being a student reviewing another student paper, as you'll see this week with the peer review that we'll do. Sometimes you'll find things that needed to be edited, polished more, and you may even find that with the student samples because I'm showing you what they actually turned in. I haven't doctored them. I think it's important for you to see how students write and not to have that pressure to be perfect, but you do want to pressure yourself to give a polished final draft, which takes a lot of editing, peer review, all those kinds of things. So just quickly, this week, one of your tasks will be to post your rough draft by the end of the week, and I've got the deadlines in here, so you'll post by Thursday to your group. I've already assigned the groups. If you go over here to the left side menu to the bottom, you should see groups and file exchange, and then if you go within this in this area, you can go here, and I've in the weekly folder I've linked you to the groups, and then you can go in there and find your name. So if you have any trouble, you don't see your name, let me know. Also, if no one posts to your group, then let me know because we want to make sure that you get at least 1 peer review this week. I think most of the groups have 4 people in the groups, and in that case, that means you're going to have to review 3 student samples. 3 students that are in your group, you're going to review their papers and you're going to give them feedback. So I'm not looking for you just to pick and choose who you review. I want you to do all the ones that are posted, and you have to do all the ones who are posted by the deadline. If they post after the deadline, you're not responsible for that. Okay, moving right along. We're going to do the peer review this week. Monday night you had the quiz, and so that's already passed. I'm posting this on Tuesday, so you've already taken the quiz hopefully. And Then I want you to review the student samples. I think that's very important. And you have a research log this week. But the main part of the week is going to be you writing and posting your rough draft so that you can get some comments back before your final draft is due next Tuesday. So your actual final draft for this is not going to be posted until week 6. Okay, so let's go over the rhetorical analysis paper. I think I've already pulled it up over here. No, it's not there. There it is. Okay. So, a rhetorical analysis evaluates rhetorical strategies and the effectiveness of an article and the argument within that article. So, as you're choosing the article that you're going to do the analysis for, you want to find something that has a point of view, a side, an argument, or a point of persuasion for the topic that you've chosen for this semester. So you have to stick with your topic, stick with the claim or the side that you've chosen to explore, and then you want to find an article that attempts to persuade something within that topic. So with a rhetorical analysis, the writer, who will be you, analyzes how another writer has written a persuasion. So that's what you'll be doing this week. Okay, so in this paper, you probably need to choose 1 to 2 quotes per paragraph from the article that you're analyzing. Don't just drop in a quote. This is a problem with a lot of beginning writers. Maybe in high school you were taught just to put a quote into a paragraph, and in college level writing you never just drop in a quote. You want to phrase into it or phrase out of it, and a quote should never be left alone. We call that dropping in the quote. Okay, so I've given you a quick little outline. This is just a basic outline of what I'm looking for in the paper. So you want to start off with an introduction, and you want to start off with something very broad based. You want to introduce the topic to the reader, which would be me or your peers in the class, and then you narrow down to the thesis statement, and your thesis statement needs to name the author, the title of the work that you're analyzing, who published it, and what the main idea is. And that is your center point of your essay, and that's your thesis. Then it's a good idea to have a second paragraph after your introduction. And in that second paragraph, you want to include background of the author, background of the topic, tone, style, intended audience, all those little things that you look at with rhetoric. The main focus, though, of your essay should be on ethos, pathos, and logos. I would like to see you feature each of those types of rhetoric, strategies of rhetoric, separately in the essay. Some students attempt to sort of weave in and out of all 3 of them and sort of combine them in the essay, and I think that creates a lot of problems for organization, and it's going to be more clear. It's going to feature your analysis of those points more clearly if you separate them into sections. So for instance, let's say your article relied heavily on ethos, and you felt like you needed 2 paragraphs to really analyze that ethos. That's fine. I'm not saying that you have a certain number of paragraphs to write, but I'm just saying to organize it, separate it into these separate sections. So just to reiterate, ethos is authority. In some cases, ethics, you may be analyzing if it's an ethical view of the topic. You may also be analyzing if the author is ethical. You're also going to look at the authority of the topic. You may look at the authority that the author has over the topic. You may feature some scholars who are quoted in the article. You may feature some statistics or other facts that appear in the article. So ethos would be ethics, authority, and credibility for the topic. Then we look at pathos. Pathos is emotion and feelings. And sometimes when you're dealing with a topic that's very technical, you may not feel that the article featured a lot of feelings or emotional sides to the topic, but sometimes just the topic itself may carry emotion. So, for instance, in your book, there's an article, Organs for Sale, and it's from this sort of the standpoint of the author speaking to the fact that more people should donate organs and sort of questioning it if it should become a business because enough people don't donate their organs. So that's a little controversial. But let's say you were reviewing and analyzing an article about organ donation, and the author had not used a lot of emotional appeals about that. Maybe they had used more facts about the number of people who go with, die before getting an organ, or maybe it explores the number of people needed to, enough people don't put that on their driver's license or something like that. Just the mere fact that is centering on life and death, that it's centering on the fact that some families have to make the hard decision to donate organs, or that someone passes away, that carries its own level of emotion, even if the author didn't feature it. So you could still analyze whether it was a good thing that the author included that as part of the persuasion, or it's a good thing that they didn't include it. Maybe it would have distracted. Maybe you would analyze that if too much emotion was used with an argument about organ donation, that it would be ineffective. There's no right or wrong to this with analysis. The right or wrong comes with how you prove your point, and the way you prove your point is to support it. So moving on along, we've talked about what ethos is, what pathos is. Logos is logic. And that's just the reasoning behind, this is true because something else happened, or this is true because something else is a fact. So with the logos, it's a lot of times showing the reasoning behind the point. So sometimes that is statistics. Sometimes it is some sort of study that was conducted and it proves the point of the logic. One of the key ways that when I have to do any kind of analysis, a lot of times I'll go ahead and print out the article and then I'll highlight the points as I read through it. And then I'll mark them as either logos, pathos, or ethos, or I'll annotate in the margins to remind myself what point I want to make about that passage. So if you can print out the article, I think that's a quicker way to maybe pinpoint the analysis, and then you can include that in your paper. You can also just keep it up on another screen and just refer back and forth with it, but you do need, as you write your essay, you do need access to the article so that you can reference it as you write, and you need to be able to pull in those quotes. When you conclude your essay for the rhetorical analysis, you need to restate the thesis statement. You need to remind the reader who wrote it, what the title was, what the main focus of the persuasion was, and then you want to broaden back out just the topic a little bit, broaden back out the points that were made in the analysis. Usually a conclusion is not more than probably about 5-6 sentences. You don't have to do a really expanded version of the conclusion. You just want to sort of do some final thoughts about the analysis. So here are the main requirements for this essay. It needs to be 2 to 4 pages, not very long, so that's good news. It needs to be typed double-spaced, as all MLA and APA papers should be. 12-point font and Times New Roman. If you notice this assignment sheet, this is in Calibri, I guess is how you pronounce it. It's not Times New Roman. So a lot of times your computer will default back to something else like Arial, and you're going to have to change it to Times New Roman. You will get points taken off if you're not in Times New Roman because that's a standard for APA. You need a title page, so we're going to go over that with the sample paper that I pull up. And you also need a reference page. So because you're analyzing an article, you need to include that on the reference page. Most of you will just have one citation, and that will be the article that you analyze. It is acceptable If you pull in additional information about the topic into the analysis, which you're not required to do, but you can if you choose to, if you use any other facts from any other source, you're going to have to include that in your references page. But please keep in mind that with this assignment, you only have to have one source, and that's the article that you're analyzing. So this isn't a big research project. It's just you're analyzing one article, one persuasive article. Keep in mind that you have to do third person, no first person, so you can't write I think, I believe, my, we, I, anything like that. And always in academic writing, avoid you. You is second person, and in English, second person is only used for conversations or written correspondence with someone you know personally, and it's more of a casual usage of a pronoun, so don't use you in your formal essays. And last but not least, use formal academic phrasing and tone with your writing, so make sure that this is college level work. Okay, so that's your assignment sheet. I'm going to get out of that, and now I want to pull up a student sample. And this particular student wrote, she wanted to be an oceanographer, and this was a high school student. She was one of my CCP students, and so she was in high school and college at the same time. And she wrote about some of the hazards in the oceans with plastics and how that was damaging some of the ocean life. And her claim was that she sort of, I can't really remember, it's been a couple semesters, but she had claimed something about how to have strategies to stop the overpollution of plastics in our oceans. And she had centered her research mostly on turtles because that was a problem with the plastics harming them. So, just a quick overview of APA formatting for a cover page, and this is in your APA section in the Siegel Handbook and in the Norton Field Guide textbook. You can also access formatting with the Purdue OWL site online. And so first you need the words running head, colon, and this is only on the title page, and then that's followed by all caps your subheader. So your subheader and your title are two different things. Think of your subheader as a shortened version of your title or your topic. Then you're going to have a page number, and this is all a header. So you need to format it as a header. So you'll go to insert, and then you'll go to header, and you'll insert the header. Then you'll center your title. And I give you a little bit of freedom with how you write your title. I do not want to see just the two words rhetorical analysis. If you want to include that as part of your title like this student did, that's fine. Just put a colon and then put like sort of the actual title there, because rhetorical analysis is the assignment, it's not your title. So I need to see more of a specific title to indicate what I will be reading. Then I just sort of, this student gave me permission to use this as a student sample, but I sort of just put in student A1 just as a generic student name. And then you're going to have your campus name. So with MLA headers, you include your instructor's name and your course title. In APA, you do not. So you just do the title, your name, and your campus name. All right. When you check the formatting for APA with the cover page, you'll notice that they also mention an abstract. And for this assignment, I do not require an abstract. We will add that into the mix for the upcoming proposal that will be after the rhetorical analysis, so you'll get some practice then. But for this assignment, you just do the cover page and then the essay. All right, so notice how on the second page, only the subtitle is the header and not the words running head. So I will post a video, an instructional video on how to change that, but it does need to be different from the, this is even not my rule, this is an APA rule, from the cover page to the first page of the essay, your header changes a little bit. Then you're going to repeat the title on the page of the essay from the cover page. Notice how this student started off very broad. She sort of got the reader's attention, which is a very important tool to writing essays, is to get the reader's attention right off the bat. Use some everyman, every woman, every person type titles and get their attention for the topic. So she wrote, "Trash is a force to be reckoned with when not disposed of properly." And she sort of used that in a broad way because we all generate some kind of trash in our lives, whether it's in our houses, on the beach, in the mountains, wherever we are. We have waste, our paper on our sandwich, or the cup that we get from McDonald's, that's waste. And so she has hit on something that is very common to all readers, and she's trying to get our attention so that we have buy-in to the topic, and you should do the same thing. So then she sort of narrows it down to her topic about sea life, and then we get down to the last sentence of the paragraph, and she writes, in Charles J. Moore's article on ocean pollution, Choking the Ocean with Plastic, which is the title of the article, he shows how mismanaged trash has affected the ocean and that the source of this waste needs to be addressed. So she's told us the author, the title of the article. She did not put the publication information, which is probably a good idea, but she didn't do that. And then she tells us the main idea. So that's very key to your thesis. Then she closes out with, the author utilizes rhetoric to describe the impact of mismanaged trash and what is being done to help decrease ocean pollution. So she's sort of giving us a clear snapshot of what's going to be analyzed and what the rhetoric of this persuasive article was. The next paragraph, and this sort of goes, she went straight by my outline that I gave in the assignment sheet. Her second paragraph centers on sort of the background of the topic and who the author is and what tone he used and all the good stuff that I've asked you to include in your analysis. Then notice that she goes straight in to the rhetoric points. So she starts off with logos. As I have said, it doesn't matter what order you do the rhetorical strategies. I suggest that you start with maybe one of the stronger ones from the article. Start off big and then maybe put the weaker one either in the middle or at the end. Most of the time with use of rhetoric, it's hard to find one that's equal in all aspects. So you may find that it's strong in logos but weaker in pathos. Occasionally you may have an article where you see that it's equal, but in most cases there's one element that's not featured as prominently. And honestly, as you analyze, you need to determine, was that the right choice that the author made? Should the author have included more emotion? Would it have been more persuasive if the reader had had more emotion included? I would imagine that since this is about sea life and something that many of us care about, and the beauty of the ocean, that probably this author included some emotion. But if he didn't appeal to the reader's emotion and feelings about the topic, then you, as the person analyzing it, would need to include that in your rhetorical analysis, because again, you are analyzing the use of rhetoric in this article. So notice how the student started off with good topic sentences. Logos is one of the main rhetorical strategies Moore uses in this article. He brings up many statistics behind mismanaged trash and its effects on sea life. So that's a very good use of topic sentences to define what will come in that paragraph. One of the things you do not want to do not define these rhetorical strategies. Any scholar, any college level reader, excuse me, any college level reader would understand the meanings of these. So don't insult the reader with kind of basic definitions. We don't need the definitions. You can use context clues. So if you use the word logos, you can follow that with the word logic, and then that's sort of a context clue to the reader that logos is logic. Or you can start with pathos and then use context clues. With pathos, the author appealed to the reader's feelings about sea life or about whatever the topic is. But do not define. I notice that a lot of students try to define what the rhetorical strategies are, and that is my expectation, that all of you are aware of these meanings and that you understand that any college level, college educated reader would understand as well. This is a common academic approach to analysis. These are common academic terms, and now if you didn't know them before, you should be well aware of what they mean. So don't insult the reader by trying to define that for them. I would encourage you to go back to the student samples, which are linked in this week's folder, and you can go to the left side menu and also tap into those. But notice how this writer included quotes and followed up with the meaning of the quotes and how they analyzed. Again, do not drop in a quote and then not explain to me what it means. So in my seated classes, sometimes I do the Oreo method. I bring Oreos to class and I tell them the first cookie is sort of the setup. Hey, this is a cookie and this is a setup for what's to come. And then the middle of the Oreo is the quote, is the fact from whatever you're writing about. And then the second part of the Oreo, the bottom part of the cookie, sort of holds it together, and that's the explanation of what the quote meant. So every point that you make in these paragraphs really should be like the Oreo method or the sandwich method. Some teachers teach it as a sandwich method, but I just like Oreos are fun, so I use that. But make sure you set it up. Make sure the middle is something that's useful, like a quote or a fact or something from what you're referencing, and then follow up with an explanation. And then you sort of got the whole cookie. It's like the whole complete point that you've made. Also, never end a paragraph with a quote. So notice how this writer had a quote and then she followed up with a sentence and she sort of explained the quote. So you, just like an Oreo, you don't leave it without the bottom cookie. You never leave a point just ending with a quote. Okay. Another thing that this author did well, notice how she transitioned from the previous paragraph. She states alongside logos, meaning we just talked about logos, Moore utilizes pathos to gain the support of his readers in this article. So she's sort of reminding us, hey, we just talked about logos, now we're going to move to pathos. And she's got a topic sentence to lead us to that. As a writer, you're a host for the reader, and you sort of have to lead them through, just like you would if they came to your house to visit. You lead them through and you host them through the information. So this student did a really good job with that. Okay. Then last, she ends with the ethos, right? I think that's what she ends with. Okay. And then finally, she has a nice little compact conclusion where she sort of brings everything together. You want to repeat, not the exact phrasing of your thesis, but you want to rephrase your thesis, and then you want to close out with some broad ideas about the topic, just like you sort of started out the introduction with some broad ideas. So this is a really good example. One thing I wanted to point out to you is this particular student chose to bring in another article that the same writer wrote, and I think she might have used it for the background on the author. You are not required to do that. This student just chose to do it. For this assignment, you only have to do the one source, and that would be the source that you're analyzing. But if you choose to bring in other information, just make sure you include it in the references sheet. And also your in-text citations will have to be distinguished between what article you are actually quoting or what article the information where it originated. So just be careful with that. In this case, the main article was written in 2014, and the subsequent article was written in 2016. So you would have to somehow differentiate that in the article with your in-text citations. Okay. Just to close out, I again have linked you to everything. You have a research log this week, you have the peer review groups, and you have a link to the student samples. So let's just link over to those really quickly and then we'll close out. Notice that we have some departmental rhetorical analysis papers in here. These are things that have sort of been donated from other instructors just for departmental use, and those are great. Use those, that's fine. And then I've also given you like sort of the Susan Austin graded assignments for students that have made an A in my classes, so you can look through those. The one that we just went over is the turtles one, and then this one is also a good one, this last one here. And then I think tomorrow on Tuesday I'm going to add some more student samples. Last semester I had some good ones that came through, so I think I'll add some additional ones. So some students might want to just look through. I try to put samples of different topics, different career fields, so hopefully you can find something that appeals to you, that helps you see how the assignment is written. And again, with the peer reviews, if no one posts in your group but you, make sure you reach out to me to let me know so that I can make sure you get a review. I'll fix it. I'll either put you into another group or I'll give you some feedback myself. Make sure you do that. Remember that the peer review is graded and you get a numerical grade for your participation with that. If someone posts late, you're not responsible to go back and review that. So you're only responsible to review the group members who post on time. And you are required to review all the group members who post, so you can't just pick one and then not review the others to get credit. If you have any specific questions, please do not hesitate to ask me. I'll be glad to help you in any way possible. Have a great week, and I look forward to seeing what you do with your analysis.